is Don Minocio. I'll be your host during today's discussion. Tell us why you became a dentist and where you're currently practicing.
I'm Dr. Putthoff. I graduated dental school from UTESCA in 2010 and did a one-year AEGD. I currently practice in Kerrville as a general dentist. I bought 2 local practices in 2019 and merged them into one. So I'm still just kind of trying to figure all that out.
I'm Theresa Lassetter. I'm a general dentist in Waco, Texas. I graduated from the UT School of Dentistry in Houston in 2016. The first office I worked for was great, but just not the forever office, and ended up joining an office that I ended up buying into at 50% partnership last year during a pandemic, which seemed like a great time to do ownership. I absolutely love it here. The reason I became a dentist is because of my mom. She's gorgeous, but hides her bottom teeth because they're super crowded because she grew up in a less than ideal situation in Taiwan. She no longer has to do that because we straighten those bad boys with Invisaligns. She is the reason that I went into dental school.
Christina. I graduated actually with Susie. We were both in 2010 at UT San Antonio. I've been actually practicing in public health on the east side here in San Antonio. I work with a larger community health center, community care health centers. During our student rotations, 3rd and 4th year, it was the rotation that we took, and I fell in love with the clinic. I fell in love with serving that community. As soon as we graduated, when there was an opening, I took it. So it's the same clinic that I rotated through as a student, and I kind of love that I still work there. Work as adjunct faculty there now as well. So it's training those same students 3rd and 4th years that rotate through the clinic as well still. So I love that aspect of it. Why I became a dentist, I kind of share that same story with Dr. Lassetter, but it was me. I was this little snaggletooth kid who went through braces and saw the transformation that it made in me. It really inspired me to pursue a career like this.
Dr. Putthoff, you and Dr. Lassetter are both in a little bit more of a decentralized area, right? Because you're in Kerrville and you're in Waco. Not that Waco's that small. I know it can be a little isolated from time to time if you're in your practice day in, day out. How does that work for you?
I think one of the most important things is just trying to stay in contact with other dentists, because you can sit back here in your office and then you feel like you're the only one that's dealing with all of this. So just kind of trying to stay in contact with other dentists in your area or people that you went to school with. There's a lot of things on social media now that you can keep in contact with people. And that's, I think, good and bad. There's a lot of groups out there that I joined, and I look at them from time to time. And sometimes those people can make you feel not so great. You get every opinion out there. And some people say, if you don't do it exactly this way, then you're a horrible dentist, or you don't know about this. People, I'm sure, lie on there all the time. And I'm like, you don't really do that all the time.
Social media definitely has that double-edged sword aspect to it. Dr. Miners, you're probably a little less isolated being that you're in a big public setting. What's that like?
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the positives I draw, I guess, from it. Working in public health, some clinics can be, isolating out in rural communities. For me, I'm fortunate enough to work in one where I'm among 4 other women in our clinic. So it works kind of like a group practice. When there's something that I'm struggling with or I want a second opinion on, it's easy to just look next door and pull up a radiograph and kind of discuss and work a treatment plan out together. Or if I'm stuck in the middle of an extraction and patients are coming in, and we all have those days where there's that one patient and you're just like, oh. And so we can kind of tag team, and we've had to do that. Okay, I'm tapping out. Get in there and maybe a different eye, a different perspective, and get that root tip out. I love that aspect of it. Like she said, with the social media thing, sometimes you look at the pictures that people post or the magazines, and they're just like these beautiful preps and beautiful things like veneers and aesthetics and cosmetics. And I'm just like, are we all the same dentists? Like, did we all graduate the same school? I guess that's the beauty of our profession as well. After we graduate, you can take it kind of anywhere and be the kind of dentist you want to be.
Dr. Lassetter, you just joined, like you said, a practice in the middle of a pandemic, but you love it. So what was that like?
Working with a partner, even before I was true partner, has been awesome. At least 12-ish times a day, we tag team on each other to be like, hey, will you look at the CT with me? Can you double check this PA? Would you fill this? Would you do that? Nick Kopp is my partner. We'll be side by side, both struggling on different extractions. And we'll look at each other and be like, tap out, and just like go to the other room, switch gloves and pop both of them out and just like high five on the way back. And it's just nice to be able to count on someone else else. Solo practicing, I think, would be so stressful whenever he is out for like a week. It's stressful mostly because we have 4 hygienists full time. That's like a whole different thing. Being able to work in a practice where you can respect and call on someone else and know that something's happening that's good for you in that room if you need to step out is the biggest mind relief there is. We also just hired an associate, so it's kind of nice to have this like fresh blood in who just graduated, has the most up-to-date new knowledge, the most delicate hand skills currently in the office. He's a wealth of knowledge, but then so are we. So it's really nice to just kind of ping pong that around. This weekend, my girlfriends and I, we do a yearly Dental Babes trip. Dental Babes 2021, we went to Broken Bone. We had so much fun just getting to reconnect and talk about the pros and cons of dentistry and practice ownership. And we graduated in the same class. And we have people who are crushing it in private practice, people who are still in OMFS residency, and people who have like just restarted their career at a different office. And so it's just interesting how different we all are, even in the same class, all this same driven set of women. We're just so different. Being able to call on each other is super helpful.
What would you say in terms of when y'all got out of school, where you thought you were going to go career-wise? What's something that you went through or that you've seen your friends go through that you went in with one idea and turns out it was a 180?
When I got out, there was no way I was interested in ownership ever. I had babies in dental school. I was going to raise them into little humans. And it wasn't until I realized I wasn't happy in the first office that I was at for long term and decided to do something about it and switch gears and get into a different office that I felt that was okay to do. I felt like I was supposed to stay there forever and ever and ever. And I did not want to stay there, but I also felt like I was giving up if I decided to not be there. Coming to terms with that was hard for me. And finally getting out and doing what I needed to was really, really the best thing that I could have done. I have friends who have been in their new office now for maybe 4 or 5 months. And they're like, I wish I had done this years sooner, but I felt like I should stay. If you've got doubts that maybe you're not in the right place and you have given it a fair go, it's okay to not be there forever. I think dentists are so afraid of failing. Like, we worked way too hard and gone to school way too aggressively to then just stay stuck. If you feel stuck, the only person keeping you stuck is you, with the one thing that I could say. Do y'all have friends and stuff from like the 2010 class that stayed somewhere that they shouldn't have, and after they finally left, they're like, oh my gosh, I should have done this like 18 years ago? And you're like, you should have.
I did, for sure. I was the same way. I didn't think I wanted to be an owner. I just was like, I don't want that responsibility. I kind of always knew I wanted to go private practice. Wasn't completely sure. And I got out of residency and just applied for every job. I was even applying for jobs in like Medicaid offices. And Christina knows pedo is not my thing, which is now good while I'm in Kerrville and all I do is basically geriatrics. It's not my forte. That's why there are people that do that. Oh, I just slipped and fell. Sorry. I got a job in a private practice. The dentist was just not the nicest man in the world. I mean, incredibly smart, a great dentist, but kind of was like, I probably shouldn't stay here long term. I had 2 different associates at the time. I worked part-time in 2 offices. And then I would kind of go on little working interviews here and there. I left that office and went full-time at one of my other associates. And that wasn't the greatest place either. Too fast-paced for me, heavy PPO driven. It just wasn't my thing. And I was in Dallas at the time. And then we ended up moving here to Kerrville. I was associate and it was a better office, but it was just kind of over time. It was like, why are we doing it this way? I don't want to do it this way. And I just kind of learned that in your office, you can do it however you want to do it because it's your office. Left that office, got another associate, actually at one of the practices that I own currently. When I joined it, the owner that I bought from had just had a heart surgery. He was like, okay, I can't practice forever. It was kind of like I was going to get in and be able to buy it because he was like, I want to spend time with my family. Well, then he started feeling better and then just kind of decided that he didn't want to sell. And for years this went on. And finally I was working for him 4 days a week and another dentist in town 1 day a week. And they both ended up kind of wanting to sell at the same time. And one was a smaller practice, one was a bigger practice. And so I bought the smaller one in January of 2019 and then the other one in August of 2019 and then merged them into one location because in Kerrville, it doesn't really make sense to have two locations. I had a lot of associateships. That's really one of the best ways to learn what you want to do and how you want to practice and where you want to be. Not all my experiences were great, but I learned a lot at each one of them, what I liked and what I didn't like. You would think with all that experience, I would have this ownership thing down and have systems in place, but I'm going to blame it on COVID, that I just don't have my act together. I kind of just show up every day and make it work and figure it out as I go along. The bigger practice that we're in, that owner, he built a great practice on just BSing with his patients. All these things that people say you have to do. He didn't do any of it. There's a lot of just being who you are with your patients. When I graduated dental school, no way did I think in 2021 that I would be an owner in Kerrville, Texas. I had never even heard of Kerrville.
For me, public health was even in school. It's something that I was passionate about. I went on a lot of mission trips, worked a lot with the Christian Medical and Dental Association. And so I knew this was something I kind of wanted to do. When I first started, I was in private practice the first 2 years as well. The same thing, I didn't really ever want to be an owner. Seeing kind of the stresses of owning a practice. Someone's always calling in. Something's always breaking down. There's little fires to always put out. The end of the day is not at 5 o'clock. I love to travel. I wanted to have a family, be a little more in control of my schedule. Going into public health was a way for me to have that end of the day. I can clock out, go home, focus on the family. It's kind of what I loved about it. After about 10 years of it, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, now I'm kind of like, oh, I'm getting old. We were looking at our Social Security and we're like, oh, 20 something more years of this. When you love what you do, I guess it makes it worth it.
What's one thing that turned out exactly like you thought it would when you went into dentistry?
I'm not sure anything has turned out exactly, unless like your parents are dentists or something like that. I don't think you really can ever be prepared for what you're getting into. It's so different from what the public view is. Every day I'm figuring something out or realizing that I just don't have a clue what I'm doing.
I think when we get out of dental school, they always talk about there's so many ways to skin a cat. Every treatment plan is different. You present the same patient to 10 different dentists and you're going to get 10 different treatment plans. That's just so much truer when you get out in the real world. Sometimes in public health, it's kind of MacGyvering things. How do you make this tooth last the longest?
We do that here too, don't worry.
But also sometimes, like we were talking about the social media stuff, I'll see a root tip on something and someone's like, look at this beautiful root canal crown and everything that I did. And I'm like, I would have taken that sucker out a long time ago, but they like made a masterpiece out of it. I knew it was going to be different, coming up with these different treatment plans and different options for patients, but just the vast difference is what overwhelms me sometimes.
For me, the only thing that stayed tried and true is I love cutting on teeth. And when I'm cutting on teeth, like the whole world gets quieter until there's a hygienist like breathing down my back. That's how I felt even in school. Like our operative classes and stuff were so set. I felt way more comfortable cutting on a tooth than I did trying to pretend I knew how to do a prophy.
Obviously, last year threw everybody for a loop. Can you just relate to us a little bit about what COVID and the pandemic meant to you, your practice?
We shut down our office because we had to. Like we were in denial about it. Being in a smaller city, we're like, la la la, it's not really happening. Those 7 weeks that we were shut down, I've seen the most pus I've ever seen in my whole life. The amount of people that came out who were like, we haven't been able to come to a dentist in like 3 years. I've just been too busy. But now that the world is ending, I can come see you. We got to help a lot of people. It was really great in that regard. Our entire front desk team came down with COVID in June. So my husband became our front desk. That was really good for our marriage. I ended up getting into a night guard. The amount of uncharted territory there was trying to decide, okay, all 4 front team members have COVID. Do we shut down our office and like deep clean everything? Do we call every single patient that we saw? Do we get the entire team tested? All of those things really forced our hand into being a better leader. Just leading the 12 people that were looking up to Cobb and myself at that point. It was so extreme. I was like, I'm just trying to lead these 12 people and I'm like, can't fall asleep. When I do gnash my teeth, it was the most intense time. And just knowing that like all my friends were freaking out the same way, we text about it and just kind of fall apart together and cry and then scoop it up and be like, we gotta keep going because your team is looking up to you to just make a decision. It was June and I bought in July 1st. So I mean, it was the last awful baton I needed to know that even if I didn't know what I was doing, I was going to pretend I knew what I was doing. Just the amount of grit that dentists had to have in order to get through that little time, or at least just to believe in yourself that you could get through it, was really powerful, even though it was terrible.
I was pregnant. I was supposed to have my baby in April. I had a routine pregnancy, but towards the end of it, I started getting higher blood pressure in a whirlwind of about a week. I had severe preeclampsia and I delivered in February. It was kind of my why me moment. Baby spent a month in the NICU. The week after she was released from the NICU was kind of when everything shut down. I call it my blessing in disguise. We missed everything that happened in the hospital side of it. We got to be able to be with her in the NICU during that time and then just be able to be home and focus on her because I had planned to take some of that time off. Coincidentally, the time off that the world was shut down. My husband had originally had 2 days of paternity leave, but that turned into so far we're writing on 18 months that he's been working from home and daddy daycare. I was also in June inducted as president of San Antonio District Dental Society. That was kind of a crazy thing as well, being the first virtual president, our first virtual installation, held all of our meetings virtually. And then also I had planned for what I wanted to do that year, theme of like diversity and inclusion, had our calendar set with events, and all of that went out the window. Reinventing how we were going to lead our society during this time. All of us were kind of learning along the way, countless emails, texts, phone calls throughout all of this, trying to figure out what was going on, trying to answer members' questions on the leadership level, trying to act like we got it all figured out and being new at it. But I had a great team. We got through it. We had our first in-person meeting, I believe, in April. And it was like my first introduction as president. And also like, this is my last meeting before your next president comes. Kind of a weird experience, but great. Weird thing with the public health side of it was the dentist that did go back to work. Luckily, we had over like 60 employees, I believe. None of them furloughed. None of them were laid off during that time. We actually reassigned all of our assistants and front office to medical triage and put them in different departments. Our dentists, a lot of them went into IT to train the medical professionals on telemedicine.
Sounds like you spent a lot of time in front of a computer over the last year, huh?
I have. This has been my little phase. I promise I have legs.
COVID hit me pretty hard when things just kind of started ramping up. Everybody was on spring break and it was kind of like, what's going on? The ADA had put out, everybody needs to shut down for a few weeks. And we still didn't have any cases here. And so it was kind of almost like when we got the mandate to shut down, I was not happy, but it was also kind of like, okay, well, now I know what I have to do. Because those 2 weeks prior were just like, oh my gosh, what do we do? But then I was like, well, I bought a practice less than a year ago and I have debt like crazy. How am I going to pay my bills and the employees? I ended up furloughing the employees, which was really hard because I felt like these people that had supported me, I just let them all down and I couldn't take care of them. But I mean, they were great and they understood and they were like, you can't pay us. So I was lucky to have everyone come back, all except for one hygienist who ended up retiring. So I was lucky to have everybody come back and we started up great. Trying to find PPE at that time was a full-time job. And I spent, I don't know how much money. I was texting my siblings, do any of y'all happen to have any N95s lying around? Like when you were painting? My brother, he sent me some and he was like, don't ask me where I got these. But during the shutdown, it was kind of nice. I was home more. I too was pregnant, which was stressful. Actually lost some weight. I've put it all back on. My other son, he was 5 at the time, really liked that. And my husband ended up having to work from home. Now he's back at work, so he's never home. So that was kind of nice to have him home and be able to interact with my son more. And he would sit in the back room and see his patients. It's actually just kind of nice for our home life to kind of slow down, take it easy and focus on things there. Although I was up here at the office a lot seeing emergencies, trying to figure out what a PPP loan was and trying to find PPE. That was horrible. We went back to work on May 4th. My son came a month early. So less than a month of when we came back to work, I had my son and had to be gone again, which was hard. But we made it work. One of the good things that I think has come out of it is more of this Zoom stuff. I prefer in person, but I've been able to attend more things. We don't have any family here. My husband always works, so I don't get to travel to meetings. I don't get to go to things a lot. This way, I've been able to do more committee meetings and more CE because I can just sit at home and have my kids running around. When you have 2 Zoom meetings going at one time and you're trying to cook dinner and you look over and the towel's on fire because you left it laying over the pot, it gets a little stressful. I do have to say TDA has always been great with me and my kids running around in the background. Everybody just talks about how cute they are and family first. I've been able to take some classes that I've always wanted to take, some hands-on workshop that I could never take the time off or afford to fly out to that place and stay in a hotel and be gone. But now so many places will do it by Zoom and they'll ship you all this stuff and you just do the hands-on there in your office. I'm kind of tired of looking at people over computers, but it's allowed me to do more things.
It's taken multitasking to a whole new level.
Yeah, I pretend I'm good at it, but like I said, I've actually set fire to my house twice. Not such a good thing. And Chick-fil-A curbside is the best thing ever. And I even have it delivered and it's like a block away from my house.
What's something funny that you found that happens to you in dentistry, or just a good anecdote?
It is absolutely mind-blowing to me the number of patients that come in and tell me that a dentist like stood on them or like laid their body on them to get a tooth out. I'm like, really? Like, what kind of gymnastic freaking dentists are you going to that they've got like their leg hiked over your face? Literally, I hear that at least 4 times a day. And I'm like, I don't understand who you're going to, and don't expect that from me.
Is that
I
like
actually
a
called a
leverage
patient
thing?
out on that one time. I was like, no, and you hear
Like,
it. And
no
I'm
one
just
would
like,
do
no,
that.
it didn't happen. You're lying. I was like, there's no way that makes
right
it
here.
easier.
So many people think that they've had that happen to them. So.
I wonder how many of them have the same story of the little pregnancy belly, baby kicking them right in their head from the belly. I've had
Got
that.
the tooth out, yeah.
I remember one time trying to reach over and get like number 16 out with my big old belly, and I'm just like, yeah, why am I still doing this?
I had a
That was-
patient ask me, what is that? And I was like, I'm sorry, it's my baby kicking you.
But what would you say is one of the more rewarding aspects of your job?
I'm going to cheat and kind of do 2. One is just proving to myself that I can do this, that I can be a dentist, that I can be a boss, that I can lead this team, kind of a confidence booster. Just as a dentist, I know it sounds cliche, but really when you get to help somebody and really make a difference, when they've been in pain for a long time and you take them out of pain, or they've had this smile where they wouldn't smile and now they start to smile and it just changes their whole life, it really makes you feel good.
The same thing, watching these kids grow up in that same practice probably about the last 9 years. So watching a lot of them grow up from little kids to now going on to college and high school, that's a rewarding part of it. Delivering your denture patients and making them happy, giving them a smile that they haven't had in a while. I've been in a lot of leadership positions. For my presidency, my theme for the year was diversity and inclusion. And one of the big things for me is trying to encourage other people to follow in the same path. I've always heard you can't be what you can't see. And so hopefully inspiring other people, other dentists, students to hopefully go down the same path and be leaders in dentistry as well.
For me, it's patients will come in and they're absolutely terrified to be there, but they're also so hopeful being worked on under your hands to have them wake up after sedation or get home and Facebook stalk them afterward. And all of their smiles have been like, and like the day after a huge procedure, even though they might be swollen and bruised and whatever, it's them like big freaking cheesing and it's their profile photo. And so many people have gone and liked it. I've had patients send me flowers before and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did my husband send me flowers for? And it's the lady I worked on yesterday. I didn't know what to get someone who literally gave me back more confidence than I ever thought possible for my entire life. That kind of thing is so amazing that people can be so terrified of us, but the hope that what is on the other side of this scary thing they have to get through with you is something that they're willing to endure. And then after they're like, I am so grateful that I did this. I have no regrets. I love that this has happened. And that is just so powerful. I don't know what we've done to be honored to be able to work on people like this that trust us this way.
I hear that a lot from our members and other folks that are in the dental profession, that is a big part of it. And it is a lot of hard work. I know it can be stressful, but that seems like a pretty good reward. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.